You always find these people smiling, giving that fake TV smile. And that is a problem, because you don't need to see the preacher all the time smiling. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum experienced the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he is tired, when he is not tired, when he is angry at something, when he is happy about something, when he is trying something new, when he is seeing an old friend, when he is talking in the morning, when he's talking at night. And all this results in different states. And then they would take from him how he is observing the religion regardless of that change. So sometimes you need to see the preacher that he is coming after a fight at home with his wife, for example, and yet talking to you. How does he handle that? Or maybe after he has been perhaps experience something like a happy event, and he's coming. How does that affect him? When he's tired, how does that affect him? When he's not tired, how does that affect him? When he's early, how does that affect him? When he's late, how does that affect him? And so on and so forth. You need to experience that, so you can do what they call muhaka. You imitate. Imam Ibn Khaldun says in al-Muqaddimah that all malakat, all capacities are only acquired by imitation. Like children, they imitate their parents. So how can you imitate those televangelists or those tele-Islamists? How can you imitate them? And then you find that after that on Facebook, when they have Facebook pages, they do that same kind of fake stuff. They put like a baby who's waking up, smiling, and say, whenever you have a problem, tomorrow, the next day, the sun will shine, and things will be good. How would that help? Like, why are you putting a picture of a baby? What does that really, right? So these sort of, and then the problem is that you find these pictures getting all these likes and shares, and people, it's just a picture of a smiling baby who's just waking up. And then write anything with that. Write blah blah blah. People will just like it and share it. And then the industry, the media industry, keeps rolling on and on and on and on and on. Okay. So Imam Al-Ghazali was suffering from something similar a little bit. Because he's saying that those preachers back then, they would give big claims about love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is very similar to what you see on television. Because they would not come forward in preaching and say, look, the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is difficult, and you need to work hard. And if you don't work hard, the train will come and leave without you riding on it. You cannot say that. Because if they say that, you will switch the channel. And if you switch the channel, what will happen? The rates of that person will come down. And when the rates of that person will come down, the money that he gets from that channel will be decreased. And because the money is determined not directly on the rates, but the rates determine how much advertisements he gets between the different sections of the episodes. So they have to use all these, big expectations, small things that will get you really huge reward. That while you're sitting there and and sometimes they do this, we're going for a short break, and while that break, you can do some salah ala nabi alayhi salatu wasalam until we come back. Fine? And then you go out for the short break, and what comes in between, like advertisements for, movies, and, all different sorts of stuff that is totally un-Islamic. And then we came back from the short break, and we hope that you have been doing the salah ala nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Are you kidding me? Like, do you actually believe yourself? And these people, And some of these incidents I experienced myself. These people, like right before the camera, you'll be like, angry or fighting and giving like weird faces. And once, like they hear the counting, 3, 2, 1. They go. See, this is all that you see, all that smiling. I'm not against smiling, but I'm just saying that this is not realistic. Living in that, fluffy, cloudy world, floating around, that's not really, being down to earth. Anyways, and again, another feature is that you use stories all the time. And Imam Al-Ghazali is, kind of denouncing that because they exaggerate in their stories. Sometimes they fake the stories. Like one tele-Islamist, he came out and said that an Egyptian soccer player who used to play in Switzerland, and then he moved from that club in Switzerland to another club in England, how the coach sent people to observe the Egyptian player without him noticing. And when they realized that he has good behaviors, they said, you know what? We want to have this person play with us in our club in England because we seek individuals who have good manners. That is, of course, made up. Okay? So they create, because they know this soccer player is being loved, is being admired. People, they have many fans. So you know what? Why not take this person, exaggerate something that we heard of him and use it in some kind of episode so we can get high shares and likes and blah, blah, blah. So same thing that used to happen with Imam Al-Ghazali. They used to, create stories. And there's a very famous story where that happened before Imam Al-Ghazali, of course, with Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and Yahya bin Ma'in. And one time, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal with his companion, they used to be friends in hadith, Yahya bin Ma'in, Imam Yahya bin Ma'in. And they went to a mosque, and some preacher was on the minbar and started narrating a hadith. And that hadith it was a made-up hadith. It was a lie. And he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ said so-and-so, and if you do that remembrance, you'll be giving, I don't know, he said something like some kind of a bird in Jannah that has one wing made out of gold, and blah, 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 one other wing made out of silver, and its head out of diamonds, and things of that sort. So after he finished, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal went up to him. He said, "From whom did you hear that hadith from?" So he said to him, "From Ahmad bin Hanbal and Yahya bin Ma'in." So Ahmad bin Hanbal, Yahya bin Hanbal goes like, "But this is Ahmad bin Hanbal and this is Yahya bin Ma'in." He says, "There are 17 Ahmad bin Hanbal and 17 Yahya bin Ma'in." And Yahya bin Ma'in narrating this, he said, "So I found Ahmad bin Hanbal putting his head in his kum," which is pretty much like he would have this large, their gowns. So putting his head in the gown and, falling, from laughing because of that answer. There's 17 Ahmad bin Hanbal and there's 17 Yahya bin Ma'in. So they used to create all these, fake stuff. Okay. One of the problems of big claims when it comes to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you would find either explicitly or implied in the word of Sufis that when you do that claim, you're usually trialed. You are tested. So when you claim, "Oh, I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much," and blah blah blah, you give those big claims about issues that are not supported and sustained by actions that translate these claims, you would then be tested for your honesty when you claim something. Okay, the fifth term is the word wisdom, or hikmah, and he's saying how it became confined in his time to those who are studying pretty much the elite intellectuals. So at his time, the elites were also those studying medicine. People are usually studying something that is, we call niche, something that is not common, studying an area of knowledge or an area of science that is not usually common. And it has some kind of a fancy description. So you find sometimes now, for example, people talk about those who are wise. Actually, you don't hear that anymore. But at some point, they would use wisdom only for people involved in literature, for example. And you find, I'm talking about Arab society, I'm not talking about the rest of the world, but you find in Arab society sometimes they would deal with, and even that, this phenomenon began to fade. But at some point they used to deal with writers and novelists and poets as, they're the wise, they're the source of wisdom. And in some sense they are, but it became like as if they're the only source. Now, people deal with the source of wisdom, either singers or actors and actresses. So that's even much worse. At the end of this chapter, Imam Al-Ghazali, at the end of this section, Imam Al-Ghazali kind of summarized the duty of the person towards the three types of blameworthy knowledge, or three types of, actually, what he did in this conclusion, he said, out of what we have presented, we are now seeing that there are three kinds of knowledge. A knowledge that is blameworthy. You should not acquire a lot of it, and you should not acquire a few of it. Actually, you should not, come near it at all. And another, it is recommended, beneficial, useful knowledge, noteworthy, that is something that you should be persistent to learn, should have resilience on learning, and the more and more you learn from it, you should never stop. And this is the knowledge of whatever brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that you need to acquire more and more. And then the third type of knowledge, that it is something that is usually recommended, but you should be sensible when you're dealing with it, which is fardul kifaya, the collective, the knowledge that is mandatory on the collective society, on society collectively. And he says that academia is an example of that. With all its different branches. And he's saying, don't look to acquire something that is mandatory on the society before you acquire what is mandatory upon yourself. And actually, he gives an example of this. He says, the person who is, and actually you find this, you find a person studying very precise matters in fiqh, for example. But when it comes to spirituality, or when it comes to other side or area of knowledge that perhaps is a priority for him, you find, or her, you find that person is involved in this, all the debates and arguments on what the Shafi'is said, and how the Hanafis replied, and how the Shafi'is retaliated to that reply. But when you come and start asking the person fundamental issues that are related to his daily practices, the person does not give you an answer. Imam Al-Ghazali gives a metaphor. He says, don't be like a person who's seeking something to push a fly away, like holding a piece of paper, for example, because a fly is, is coming near you and you're trying to, push it away. Don't be like that person, pushing the fly away, and yet he's ignoring the fact that snakes and scorpions are crawling upon his sleeves. So the person should be involved in doing what? The priority first. The fly would not harm you as much as the snake and the scorpion. So he's saying the person involved in Fadl Kifaya and leaving Fadl Ayn is almost like the person, very involved with the fly and ignoring the snake crawling up his clothes. And then he divides, in the last concluding paragraphs of this chapter, he divides academic sciences into 3 levels. And these are اقتصار, اقتصاد, استقصاء. These are 3 levels. And اقتصار are usually the first level, the bare minimum basically. And then اقتصاد, which is the intermediate level. And then استقصاء, which is the advanced, professional, specialized level. One could draw the argument, but I wouldn't say that this is or give an example, but I wouldn't say it's close enough. That, a beginner level is like a bachelor degree, an intermediate level is like a master's, and an advanced specialized level is a PhD. There is a similarity in this, but they're not exactly the same notions. There's a similarity in that a bachelor degree says that the person, when it comes to this branch of science, is affiliated with a certain level. Because before the bachelor degree, perhaps people say that this person is not affiliated with that branch at all. But this is the first level of affiliation, okay? That you have a bachelor degree in that field. And then a master's degree, which says that this person is an intermediate, perhaps, in when it comes to that discipline in totality. And then a PhD, which is a degree that says that this person is specialized, is a professional in this field. It has the same philosophy, but it's not necessarily exactly the same. Imam Al-Ghazali gives practical examples for each one. And these practical examples were then developed by an Ottoman scholar. His name is Sajaqili Zada, in a book called Tartib al-Ulum. And he took that advice by Imam Al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulumuddin, where he divided the levels, the academic levels, into 3. He started going into every single branch of the different sciences and giving recommendations for the books and the textbooks and the curricula that would fit every level of these. So he would say, for example, the beginner in fiqh would study this particular book, the intermediate in fiqh would study that particular book, and the advanced levels would study that particular book. This idea of 3 levels is very apparent in the Muslim thought, and you find this idea present, for example, in the words of Ibn Khaldun in the introduction, where he has a chapter on the beneficial method of instruction, or the most useful method of instruction. Alhamdulillah, I finished the commentary on that chapter, and hopefully it will be published soon, inshallah. And Ibn Khaldun divides, again, the students into 3 levels: a beginner, intermediate, advanced. So they all have the same philosophy, but sometimes they would then disagree on the practicality of it, the implementation. How is that applied? But all in all, where did they get this 3 grades or 3 levels from? We can give a metaphor to it, and actually this is mentioned in some of the hawashi on al-mawaqif fi ilm al-kalam, that when you are in a journey, you're either at the beginning of the road, or you are in the process of reaching your destination, or you are at the destination right before it, right? There are no fourth option really. Otherwise, you're not really traveling. But if you are traveling, You're either at the beginning of that road or that path that will get you to the destination, or you are on the way, or you're getting near to the destination, near the arrival. Alright, so according to this, they said, well, there is a destination in knowledge, which is to have the mindset. This is usually the final or optimal level in any kind of knowledge, which is to be part of that discipline. See, the person who has the mindset, note something, this is really important. You would only affect a science if that science became part of you. If it doesn't become part of you, you would not become part of it. In order for you to see, we gave an example. We said Imam al-Haramain Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni transformed ilm al-kalam. He added to the science, right? For him to do that, he had to develop the mindset of that discipline. Otherwise, he could not have been able to do that. So, in order to add to a specific area of knowledge, that specific area of knowledge has to be inculcated in your mind. You develop the mindset. In other words, if you want to advance the science of engineering, you have to become an engineer in the sense or in the terms of you have to develop the mind of an engineer. And having the mind of engineering becomes part of you, becomes a capacity, becomes a capacity of yourself, becomes part of your identity. So when engineering becomes part of you, you become part of engineering as well. You add to it. Same thing with medicine, same thing with law, same thing with physics, any kind of academic branch. When you absorb it and it becomes part of your psyche, you start adding to it. That's a prerequisite. It never falls short. Okay. And we stop here. If you have any questions, concerns. Okay, so I'll be seeing you inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala next time. Okay. I'll just